Well, impromptu start here. Our host for the day has actually just kicked the plug out of his PC, so he's having to reboot. It's Thursday. It's 9 o'clock. It means it's UK Cowboys time. How are you doing, guys?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Put the drubbing of Sunday past and ready to move on.
You got over that pretty quick.
You just have to. I mean, there's no point in stewing over it. I didn't quite burn the tape as some people would say you should do, but I went and had a look, and there was a few things to take out of it, but a few positives that if it wasn't for a couple untimely penalties or whatever, you could have had drives going, but
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, there's a lot of learning there, but it was against the best team in the NFL, and it showed up what we need to work on. So let's look forward.
And hopefully at some point we find the keys to the launch codes as well, so that we can get this offense kicked off. So,
do you know, it's funny. The last show I was on was last week, and Lauren, I think you called it perfectly when you said it's either going to be a shootout or a defensive slog. And you were right about the 49ers and horrifically wrong about us. They shut us out. They beat us up.
Well, actually, as Mike and I were going through things just before we started as well, that he was obviously looking at the Fantasy Lounge scores, and I did very picking scores for the 49ers side of things. I did really badly for the Cowboys side of things, but we'll get onto that at some point. But obviously, moving on, we've got the Chargers coming up this week. We've got the Kellen Moore Bowl. There's a lot of ex-Cowboys on that Chargers roster. You've got Simi Fehoko, you've got Jalen Guyton, although Jalen Guyton I think is injured at the moment. So it's certainly it's almost like the Diet Coke of Dallas Cowboys almost. So
and 90% of the stadium is going to be Cowboys fans, so they're going to feel like it's a home game.
Yeah. I mean, if you think as well, this is. The stadium's only been open 3 years, and this is our fourth trip in 3 years. So it is almost becoming a second home. So how do you guys feel now that obviously Monday's over and done with? Have you got it out your system? Or?
I know it's early in the season, and I know we've touched on it on Tuesday night, but it's Brian made a point in the private group chat that he questioned Dak's ability to get to the promised land of a Super Bowl, and I have to admit it's getting harder and harder to back up for. To constantly fight his corner. I get that it's not just a one-team game. There is a defense involved. There's special teams. There is offensive playmakers. 5 guys that have to give Dak 3 seconds to throw the ball. And if you quite simply look at the box score, it is the interceptions, but you can't pin all of them on Dak, especially the Michael Gallup one.
Yeah.
Was it Michael Gallup? He hits Gallup on the numbers. You can't really do much more than hit a player on the numbers. But the box score will tell you that he threw 3 interceptions. But I see Brian's point, but I also see the point. What is a quarterback? What is a Super Bowl winning quarterback caliber? And how many are there really? When you think about it, there aren't many quarterbacks in the league with Super Bowl rings right now.
No.
Certainly that is in part to Mr. Thomas Brady, who's now chucked the game. But you know, how good is a Super Bowl winning quarterback? We can't all have Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, for instance. Like, just to fill you in, we've moved very swiftly on to number 4. And
yes, you continue. I'm listening.
You know, it just.
I'm still making my apologies to the computer. You know, like when you do it, I fired it back up and it was like, you had an unexpected shutdown. I was like, I know.
Yeah.
It took me by surprise too.
Thank you for that at the opportune moment. No,
I know.
It is a team game, but you have to consider whether it's worth paying Dak Prescott a fifth of the salary cap. And Sunday night was a big dent in the belief.
Yeah. I think it's two different things. I mean, there's the business side, which is that a quarter. Never mind the Cowboys and all the media side of things, but that is the price of a quality quarterback. And Dak is between 12 and 6 in the top 32, and that is the price that they get. Like Danny Dimes, no one thinks he's anywhere near 12 to 6. But that is the price he gets, and that will be a hit. And there's all the sorts of consequences that come from where the market's taken the game. But I agree with you on the point that there aren't that many quarterbacks who can put a team on their back and take them to the promised land. Mahomes, Brady, Burrow. Struggling to think of many others. I mean, Hurts.
Well, Burrow's having his struggles.
Yeah. It does help to have 2 legs. But Hurts, no. Hurts is good, but he's not. He's not a difference maker. Same with Purdy. He's good, but he's not the reason that the 49ers win. I'm a number 4 fan. I never thought, he isn't elite. He isn't one of the best of all time. Is that needed to get us to a championship? I don't know. I think it needs to be a whole team effort, from the pre-game to the play calling to the players on the pitch, right the way down to catch the ball when it hits you in the numbers.
I mean, there seems to be a lot of flux in the quarterback situation across the entire NFL at the moment. I mean, obviously, you've got the big contract that Danny Dimes has signed. You've got the big contract that Joe Burrow signed. He's obviously injured and he's trying to play through that injury. And that's maybe having an effect on him. You've also got, for Burrow as well, you've also got the added thing that, no quarterback that has gone to the Super Bowl in his second year and lost has ever gone back to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So he's got that added pressure as well. And I mean, that's Dan Marino, that's Colin Kaepernick. There's one, I think there's one other as well. So there's the added pressure of that he's got that to come as well. But you're seeing at the moment things like, there's talk about do the Vikings suddenly trade Kurt Warner? Not Kurt Warner, Kirk Cousins. There's a lot of, obviously, trade deadlines in 3 weeks' time. There's a lot of craziness that's already being muted at the moment. If you listen to Dave Hellman's pod, he was obviously talking about things like that today. That do you start looking at the Vikings tearing down and rebuilding? Obviously they've got Jefferson going on to IR for a couple of weeks, so that's 4 games that they're out without their major weapon or whatever as well. So is it a case of tearing things down and starting? I don't think we're necessarily at that with Dak. And then you've also got QBs that have won a Super Bowl like Joe Flacco or Harbaugh, Matt Hasselbeck. That they weren't flashy. They weren't put this team on my back and I'll guide you to the promised land. They just didn't. And you could even say Eli Manning as well. I mean, Eli Manning, if it wasn't for the helmet catch and there was something strange in the second Super Bowl as well. You know, they made a catch as well, and it was against the going up against the Patriots for a second time. You know, it's it is sort of crazy. You know, it very much is that you can have all the talent in the world. If you don't have the luck, you know, you're not going to go far or whatever. So,
yeah.
I mean, look, you know, if you could put it, you've seen this unsurmountable amount of times. I mean, if you want to say like a team can get blown out in one game and not go on to win a championship, go tell Georgia that when they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game. They went on to go and win an I know that's college, but I'm just saying that in terms of sports, these things can happen. I seen a funny one earlier. It was a guy who's saying, like, you know, that Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott are geniuses because they didn't show the 49ers any of their playbook. They didn't show any play. So they've hidden all of that away, ready for the playoffs when they face them. It wasn't just, Graham. It was a jokey one. But I just kind of like it. It's a positive spin.
I'm just thinking, though, the cost of that is having to go back to San Francisco in January.
Yeah, you'd rather just like have the bye. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, we're literally only into the second quarter of the season. So you can't write it off. Like, there were teams very easily still in with running with a worse record than Dallas.
Yeah.
Just because the Eagles are 5-0, that doesn't mean they'll go all the way through. No. And the other thing I always say on this is that here's the crazy part, right? Is that the Cowboys have had in the last season and a half 7 losses, and this leads to this week's game. In all those 7 losses, they've come on the next week to go on and win the next game. A couple of those games have gone for 30 or more points, and 2 of those games have been 40 or more points, with one of them being the Minnesota Vikings that was 40 points to 3. So it's almost like as if, you know, like we've heard it time and time again about this iron, steel, sharpened steel and all the rest of it. It's some of that. Because I can remember, how many years ago was it? And it was like the Steelers were cakewalking in the AFC North. And they went into the playoffs and were straight in and out. But it was like almost because they had such an easy schedule that, okay, you can say like, yeah, it was easy. So they kind of broke through. But also they were never put into a corner. They weren't backed in at any point. So they were never tested throughout the season. So once they got to the playoffs, it was kind of like, and, you know, they got punched in the mouth. It was like, oh, crap, this is what that feels like. And they couldn't react to it. So you kind of, I feel, sometimes in the regular season, not humbled is the wrong word. You need to have the adversity to strike you, to be like, this is how we pull ourselves out of that. You need it. And if you see it and they do it and then they go on a run, then you're like, that's more scary to me than a team that walks through the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, Eagles last year, there were some, as hard as it is to say, there were some quality players on the Eagles team, but it kept coming back to they never faced anyone that really challenged them all year. And even you thought they would when they get to the conference championship, and then 49ers fell apart from injuries. So the first real test game they had, they failed in the Super Bowl. They didn't know how to stifle and Chiefs comeback. And you said about the Eagles being 5-0 now. Yeah, but they've got Dolphins, Bills, us, Seahawks, Chiefs, us twice, in fact, from November through much of December. So, yeah, that they're not going to have the same record as last year.
And the Eagles haven't looked imperious. Where the 49ers have obviously scored 30 points in every single game this season.
Yeah,
and
they've looked more solid.
Yeah,
and you've also got there's an interesting stat that in the last 16 games, the team that has played the 49ers has gone on to be 1-15 the next week. So, you know, we're offsetting our 10-1 with 1-15 the following week. So, that's certainly a consideration for this week. But the Eagles certainly haven't looked. The Commanders a couple of weeks ago, if it wasn't for the defensive back of the Eagles sticking his hand on the floor, McLaurin would have got his foot down inbounds, got into field goal range, or potentially even gone for a touchdown or whatever. And you could be saying that the Eagles are 4-1 or whatever.
A few plays in a few of those games with the Eagles that go just like it doesn't quite fall their way, and they're losing that game. It's happened in 2 of the games where you watch the and you're like, that's a game changer for you. If the guy made that catch, or that the Eagles play didn't quite make that's game over for you guys. So it's just as close. And I'm not here to bash the Eagles. We'll do that when we come along to them, and we can get on with the UK Eagles and have a chat with them as well. So, but I mean, I like, for me at the moment, it's more of a scheme and play calling issue than it is talent. Because, like I said this, in our group chat, that the team is good enough, no matter what, it is good enough to make the playoffs. There's enough talent. When you look at the NFC, you look at the NFC East and you go, yeah, the Cowboys can hang with the Eagles. They're better than the other 2. We already know they've beaten the Giants. You look around at the rest of the NFC and you go, well, who's the teams that could possibly pinch a wild card? And you just go, well, Dallas is better than all of these teams.
Yeah,
they're better than these guys. It's not that case. What the problem becomes, I feel, the question is how do they look once they make the playoffs? That's more the question. And if you ask me that question, I can't give you the answer because I don't know. That they had an opportunity to show what they were made of, and it didn't. Nothing came of it. So that's the biggest problem. I like. Who they face in the wild card round is anyone's guess. Possibly, depending if it's the right team that they face that isn't a running team, they could do it. But beyond that, you're kind of just like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure. Like, I don't even know what you can do with the scheme to make it right. We're way past the install. So what are you going to do? Because at this stage, if you start changing things, how are you going to try and implement that within? All right, they've got the bye week coming up. That's probably a good time to try and do, to try and reinstall the offense into whatever plan you've got. But how different is that going to be? How much is it going to look?
I think a lot of it is confidence and belief.
Yeah.
You look over the past 3 weeks,
and Valenti makes a good point.
We've lost to one of the top 5 picks in the draft, in this coming draft, in the Cardinals. That came out of left field, and you've also lost to a Super Bowl contender.
We won't be out the first round.
You start to think to yourself, where do we think we are right now? Again, as I said in the private chat, you've got the elite teams, the Cowboys, good teams, and top 10 picks.
Yeah.
And I think it's just getting a bit raw that we're constantly in between the good teams and the elite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like you need somebody. You need it all to come together to get into that elite group. And I think
what's really annoying, Gray. I'm like, no. In the 5 years we've been doing this, it's always been the same. It's always been lopsided with the Cowboys, that they've had an elite offense, but the defense has struggled. Now it seems to be like it's flipped the other way around, and you're just kind of like, can we never find just like a nice balance between the two?
And I don't think it helps that we lost to the 49ers 9 months ago.
Yeah.
And straight away in every Cowboys fan's head, it's only right to think, here we go again. Have we gone any further in 9 months? And right now, you have to think.
Well, this is the problem. This is why I say I've got the questions, because I don't know. I know that they're good enough to make it to the playoffs. Definitely. What happens when they get there? The why there's the question mark there is, if you lost to the 49ers, right? I'd be kind of like, okay, how much different was that loss in comparison to, like you say, when they lost last night? Because, all right, the scoreline was fairly close, and for a section of that game, it was it was a close fought game. But the bit that makes it worse is, like you say, 9 months on, they lose the 49ers, but this time it's even worse than last time.
Yeah.
So they've gone backwards in that sense.
Yeah.
The frustrating thing for me is obviously pre-season, when you were fielding backups in the pre-season games, you were seeing this offense actually work. And yes, they were vanilla with what they were doing there. And you're playing with your second, third, fourth string scrubs, whatever you want to say. Gallup didn't play. Cooks didn't play. CD Lamb didn't play. Ferguson was on for a little bits, but generally wasn't playing. It was the likes of Hendershot and Schoonmaker and John Stevens Jr. Yes, we've lost a lot of guys to injuries, but the offense, you were saying enough that when we were talking about it, you were saying, yeah, this offense has the potential. Watching the blue and white scrimmage, watching, if you watch training camp live, you were seeing that when Dak had time to throw, that he was playing against our defense, and the defense had Trayvon Diggs, so it wasn't a case of the defense has certainly gone on a tailspin since Trayvon Diggs has gone off. It's given up 358 yards a game now, but alternatively as well, the last couple of years under Kellen Moore, we started the season on fire offensively. And then towards the end of the season, you've had all these injuries or whatever it is, and then you've tailed off as you go into the playoffs. That you're almost a wounded animal, and you're looking for a place to die almost.
Tell how
Sorry,
it is.
I'm laughing at a comment. He knows who he is. He's a Seahawks fan, and he was like, "Oh, noticed you didn't show your face at the start of the show." No, that wasn't the case.
I think the Chargers are a very different beast. I mean, 49ers, as soon as the schedule came out, pretty much I had it scratched as a loss. It wasn't a good loss to watch, and I did fall asleep during the middle of it. But Chargers are different. Chargers are vulnerable in a lot of places. What we showed in being able to shut down CMC last weekend offers us promise against Eckler next weekend. It would be good to have made this a closer game and showed that we are punching towards the top, but it just reinforced what we at heart of heart knew. We are not the absolute cream of the NFC. We are the contenders in the NFC. And that's something we can keep going even despite all the injuries. And if we can carry that into California and carry that into the bye week, then actually as the Eagles falter, then I'd be looking at pushing them into second place in the division.
I mean, let's go for this weekend. Let's move on from the 49ers and put that. Okay, we won't forget it, but we'll forgive it for now. Okay, let's move to the Chargers. And as I say, one of the big ones, I like my little weird statistics, and I went back. In the last 7 losses the Cowboys had, the following week has been a win, right? So that's in the last season and a half. So we've got that little tick in the box going for us. And by the way, one of the losses I have included as the divisional round loss in the playoff, but then the next win, which was against the Giants week 1. I know that's cheating, but technically it's correct, all right? Yeah. I'm using that. But one interesting fact that I put up today, which is quite interesting. So the Chargers with Justin Herbert, it's kind of, you expect it. They're really, really good at throwing the ball. But ironically, at home in SoFi Stadium, they're only throwing an average of 175 yards per game. And that's very near the bottom. And the Cowboys on the road are only allowing 164 yards per game through the air. So, and I think that's like second best. So there is that. Plus, there's a few other little tidbits which we'll get to. But in terms of how they are as teams, especially on defense, they're not that far apart. But this offensive line, one thing that's going to be missing for the Chargers is Joey Bosa. Doesn't sound like he's going to play. Yeah. He's had the injury, then he had the toe injury against Minnesota, even beyond what we're seeing this week. We'll see what comes up on the practice report. Doesn't look like he's playing. But in his replacement, they've had the USC pass rusher, Tui Pailutu. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's actually stepped up. And it's no surprise. He was like Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year last season. And he had something like 14 sacks and 22 tackles for a loss in one season. He is really good. But the big one is Khalil Mack. And I think this offensive line need to focus on where he is. Because like Khalil Mack, kind of like Parsons, he's good at moving around. And he can rush the passer in various ways. He's got a very, very big, he's got a toolbox that is unsurmountable in there for different moves that he can put on. But he can do it from different positions as well. He's not restricted to one place where he can do it from. So they're going to have to really be on the ball. And it's no surprise that Khalil Mack at the moment is leading the Chargers in pressures and sacks. In fact, he's got more than Micah Parsons.
Yeah, but having said that, that's all from one game, basically, which was last week. You would have been forgiven to saying that Khalil Mack was actually injured or something for the first 4 weeks of the season, and then he showed up against, who was it that they were playing last week? It was
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. So, yeah, his former team, he showed up against, so...
It is true. There is, when you want to provide context with it, there is that. But he still is a major threat. The big one, though, if you have a look, and it's kind of weird because their defensive tackles, they've got an issue with the inside of their defensive line. In terms of how talented they are. But what is really weird is that teams this season have been more successful on running off tackle on outside runs than they have on the inside. And you'd think it'd be the other way around. And what that means for me is what I like is that is Tony Pollard's bread and butter when you think about it. Those off tackle runs or off on the outside of the tight end is like where Pollard is like excels the most. Not saying that that's exclusive because he will make runs through the A and the B gap, but on the outside runs is where he's the best. And the Chargers are allowing nearly over 5 yards per carry on the outside. So I think that's an area to attack. But you then, guys, let's ask this, and I'll ask you guys at home as well. Is this a game for Tony Pollard to break off or Rico Dowdle?
Yeah. I mean, the last time they played in 2021, I was reading, Pollard got like 119 or 109 yards. So it shows
he did have a big breakaway.
Yeah. That would allow us, I think mentioned last time I was on here, allow us to set the tempo of the game, allow us to get the crowd, which is mostly Cowboys, behind us, allow us to take some of the pressure off Dak and feel he doesn't have to force it, allow with the knocks and bangs to our defense, allow us to keep our defense off and tire theirs. Running should be the core of what we do next week. It doesn't have to be, I mean, we'll touch on scores later, I'm sure, but it doesn't have to be a big blowout win. But if every moment of the game, when you watch it, it looks like we are in possession and in control, then I'll take a 1-point win.
Yep. I think for me, you've certainly got to get this ground game running. And I think... it's no surprise that going into the 49ers game, Pollard was leading the league in terms of carries. And he'd certainly, he'd been used as almost that franchise bell cow back that you were talking about, which again, there was comments last year when Zeke was injured, and Pollard had sort of taken himself out after 16 or 17 touches and said he didn't have any more left in the tank, and you got to wonder that this year he's had a year to rehab from the injury, but also get himself ready for taking on that mantle. But realistically, he was at his best when he had a second back, and I think that's why you certainly need Dowdle to step up as well. And to be fair, Dowdle actually did quite well last week.
I thought so too.
Getting the yardage against the 49ers. So, if you get more carries for Dowdle and hopefully his hip stays healthy and all that, Dowdle and Pollard together, should be able to get this started. But, the running game opens up the play action pass, opens up the waggles, gets Dak out of the pocket, whatever, and should open everything else up. Now, we still need to there is other things we need to do. We do need to try and get Brandon Cooks in the game. He's only got 1,000-yard receiver, and he's only got 9 catches for something like 80 yards or something like that.
It's not much.
It's
hold on, 73 yards.
73 yards.
It's on the bottom.
We've seen better performance from Jalen Tolbert this year. And there was initially at one point you were talking about whether Jalen Tolbert would actually surpass Michael Gallup on the depth chart. Now at the moment, Jalen Tolbert's probably looking at, certainly stats wise, he's surpassed Brandon Cooks, but
which is concerning more than it is a skill problem. But here's one for Graham, because I know he's going to like talking about this.
Here we go.
Is Michael Gallup, after last week, what we saw, is he done? Because Gallup has always been the guy who's really good at the physical, at the point of contact. Those 50-50 balls are never 50-50 balls with Michael Gallup. But he's not a big separator. He never has been. He's that Des Bryant-y type player. Junior. I'm not saying he's that level, but that type. We're seeing now, though, obviously, since the injury, can't separate. Now he's having smaller, lighter cornerbacks beating him on a slant. And, you don't allow a cornerback to cross in front of you, to cross your face on a slant. That's basic slant route running. And now Michael Gallup's allowing that, which says to you, or says to me, this is one of the reasons why that interception came in. The interception is solely on Michael Gallup. It really is. If you go back and watch it, Dak puts the ball where it is, but Michael Gallup, he has to be the one to out physical the corner to get the ball. He doesn't. He just loses. Now, the problem is why I'm asking this question, Great, is he can't separate. Now he can't out physical players to the ball. So now what does Dak do? Has he lost all trust in him at this stage? And what do you do?
Well, the problem is that you don't have Brandon Cooks. So if Michael Gallup starts struggling, you've really got to rethink your wide receiver depth chart. And I don't think we're seeing particularly good numbers from CeeDee Lamb either.
No, he's frustrated.
We were quite excited about this receiver core at the start of the season. You think you bring in an outside talent in Cooks, played in the league for a lot of years, has a ton of experience, has been a number one before. You want CeeDee Lamb to go and be that potential number one. You bring Michael Gallup back because potentially he could be your number one, and none of them have stepped up. I mean, we started the show by certainly I brought up Prescott, and certainly can he take us to the promised land? He's got to do a little bit of it themselves. They can't just. That can't do any better than hit Michael Gallup on the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to Michael Gallup to bring the ball in. And when he juggles that ball and it ends up in a corner's hands, the stat sheet says, "Oh, Dak Prescott just threw an interception," but it's simply not the case. I would love it to change some kind of stat, like I don't really care what they call it, a bobble turnover or something like that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's
Unforced
not fair in
interception.
quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Enforced, yeah.
A 3 interception game hits an awful lot more headlines than a 2 interception game or 1 interception game. But the simple fact is that they weren't all on Dak Prescott.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Dak had a good game last week and he's completely absolved of blame. The 1 interception was, you can be like, yeah, okay. But I mean, certainly the Michael Gallup one, like, it's not the bobble. It's the fact that, like, when you teach how to run a slant, the first thing they teach you what not to do is exactly what Michael Gallup did. And like everything that he did, he allowed the corner to get between him, out-physicaled him, and cross his face. You just don't do that. You don't allow that. You just don't. And he allowed all that to happen. And then the result always, literally nearly always, is an interception or close to. There's an opportunity there because of where the position of the player is and where the ball's going to be bobbling around him. So it's like at this stage, I look at that and I think the interception, okay, is bad. More of the worry for me is how Michael Gallup played on that play. That's the biggest one. And I kind of like, I don't know. I think that's more concerning than everything else. But here's another one.
Just further to the Gallup conversation, just one more, Mike. Sorry.
Yes, no, you go, man.
You've still got another 3 years left on his deal.
Mm-hmm.
They gambled on Michael Gallup. They did, and
they hoped the injury wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The ACL or the cruciate or whatever it is in a knee or the Achilles, it's not the big deal that it used to be. Obviously, the doctors are getting far better at treating the problem quicker and more effectively. But that's not to say for everybody. Quick look at over the cap. If you were to cut Michael Gallup, it's $13 million in dead money and $800,000 saving on the cap. Now think who you've got coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got
that's the problem.
CD Lamb will want at least $15 million. He'll want to be in the wide receiver 1 conversation. He certainly won't set the market. Not a chance will CD Lamb reset the market.
And that's why he's frustrated. And I get the frustration because like I wrote him up this week on blog and like you go back and you have a look, right, Greg? 1 game he's had, week 2, 13 receptions. Great. All the others, 4 receptions, no more.
And that's not wide receiver 1.
Yeah, exactly. And he knows that. But he knows that he's a wide receiver. And we all know that he is, and the talent is there. But he's just not getting the ball. So you think he's not just frustrated because he wants to get the ball to win games and go out there and make scores and all the rest of it. He also, in the back of his mind, he's going, I got a contract coming out.
Yeah,
this is my contract year.
It's not so much that he's dropping balls or anything like that.
No, he's just not getting targets.
He's not getting the targets. And I mean, that part of that is obviously trying to spread the ball around. But you're still not going to your main weapons when it comes. It's been short yardage. We haven't taken the lid off the defense by having an intermediate route. I think there's something like the number of explosive plays which you classify as being over 20 yards. We're only on something like 9 or 10 this season. Where under Kellen Moore we were probably at about 30 for this period of the regular season. Now again, that can all change if everything suddenly clicks this week, and again we made a big thing last week about the offensive line being together for the first time since Tyler Smith was drafted. There was miscommunication between Tyler Smith and Tyron Smith last week that, you know, affected some of the pass rush as well. Nobody actually had a good game last week. You know, Tyler Smith, I think, graded out the best, but, you know, you had Biadish getting slowed by injury. Yeah, Terrence Steele jumping a few times and obviously not being able to handle Bosa. You know, Zach Martin was even, you know,
he allowed a sack.
He's allowed a sack as well. I mean, it's the continuity is not there. As soon as you find, as I say, you know, as soon as you find the keys to the launch code or the launch codes or whatever, and this offense kicks into gear, if it ever does, then, you know, it could be a different thing going down the line, and we could suddenly come into force and just blitz the rest of the season. But it's a case of show me it first of all.
I think with the offensive line, it's more of a chemistry thing. Like, you think these guys haven't played together since 2021. So I do think that these 5 starting offensive linemen will find a continuity and a chemistry with each other. It's just those 2 things we were talking about take time. But as good as they are, I think it won't take as long because they have, in one way or another, through various movements on the line, have played with each other, just not all at the same time. So I think that will come. And against this Chargers defensive line, they're a team that don't get into the backfield all that often, just that when they do, they get home. You know, it's one of those things. They don't blitz all that much because the 2 linebackers that they've got are more run stoppers than they are used on blitzes. But when those guys go for it, they are making sacks. They're doing that this year for definite. But let's get on to the other side because we've got a few questions on the defense as well. Let's talk about the Cowboys defense. Obviously facing Justin Herbert. Last time when we faced the Chargers in 2021, Herbert was really the bright light on that offense that kept the game close. First things first, I'm going to ask you guys and everyone at home as well, based on what we've seen this year with him being hot and cold and then that absolutely complete crazy penalty, is Jaron Kearse on this roster next year? Let me know at home as well, guys.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you look at, he's in the final year of his deal as well, and obviously, we've spent money on Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson this year. Those are not necessarily looking too healthy as well. You know, looking like again deals that we perhaps should have waited another couple of weeks on before making that decision. But I mean, yeah, stupid penalties, like you're lining up so far offside that, you know, it's almost a repeat of Jalen Tolbert last year when he was a yard across the line. Yeah, and that's sort of a bit strange. So
it was a very odd penalty. It was so odd. I made a very weird noise, and then I had a text message from the bedroom saying, "Keep the noise down."
And I mean, stupid things like taunting penalties and
that I've got a problem with. But continue.
Well, I've you know, obviously you get heated during the middle of a game, and you know things can go out the window or whatever. But
I didn't even see it personally.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, there has been some questionable calls this year, but you know, it's and across the board. I mean, again, you know, if you're any team that's playing the Kansas City Chiefs at the moment, you almost want a second video crew to document everything that's been called against you. But
yeah, that is for sure. I've got a good question here though from our old pal, Mr. Mike Bull. Now, obviously, LVE is out for the season next spring. I'll ask you first, Craig. So Micah Parsons, going to be looking to play him more off ball. Personally, I think that is going to be the case. I know they made a move for a replacement linebacker, which they've got in from Tennessee Titans, who we played at last. I find it crazy that the guy hadn't found a team sooner, but there we go. They brought him in, workout, passed the physical. He's on the practice squad. They need to get him up to speed. I think they're not going to finish there. I think they're still going to look for more linebackers because they need it, especially with CJ Goodwin gone as well. So you need something for the special teams. Parsons, though, I think a move more to off-ball linebacker so we see less pass rushes from him, do we think?
No, I think Micah Parsons... Sorry, is that you?
No, go on, Craig.
Craig, go on.
And I think Micah Parsons, going back to what we're saying about, do we want to go into San Francisco in January? I think there are a few things that other teams will look at us as think, do we really want to face the Cowboys? And one of the big things is Micah Parsons on the full charge. Where's he going to come in? Where's he going to find that hole and get right in our QB's face? I think the unpredictability of Micah Parsons is the big question mark that leaves OCs working against us. If you drop him back a bit more, use him a bit more against the run, I mean, teams have been running at him in order to tire him because just that's a way to slow the pass rush. I think anytime you're not using him to challenge the quarterback in the passing game, I think you're missing a talent. I'd rather go down the route you're saying, get a quality linebacker in to stiffen that part of the field up rather than trying to spread Micah too thin.
Yeah. I mean, Lorne, I know you was going to hit me with it because there is obviously other options available. You've got Marquise Bell, who can play the position. I even think at a push for a few weeks, you could use Donovan Wilson because he's this oversized safety that can play in the box. You do a little bit there. But what's your thoughts on Micah Parsons off ball? Do you think that it's necessary, or do you want to stick with the Craig idea of keeping him in his role?
I think it is necessary that and it goes to help. Anything for Micah Parsons to if he's still hoping to show that he can be Defensive Player of the Year, if he can show that he's got that flexibility to go back to playing linebacker as well. Mm-hmm. It's almost interesting that 2 years ago, coming into the league, going into the Chargers game, and DeMarcus Lawrence had gone down, and we were then calling on Micah Parsons to come in as a pass rusher from that off-ball linebacker situation. And now we're facing the Chargers again, and now we're talking about changing position for that. But if you couple as well, we do have, it's not like you are losing a little bit, but obviously we do have dedicated pass rushers and guys that are good against the run as well from those defensive end slots. You got Dante Fowler, you got Sam Williams, who again started showing up, but he's Dorrance Armstrong as well. Dorrance Armstrong's been he's still there. He's good against the run as well, good at setting the edge. So you can have these guys, and again with Dorrance Armstrong, obviously the losing of Randy Gregory to Denver, you saw more playing time for Dorrance Armstrong. Dorrance Armstrong hit the scene. Mm-hmm. Is Micah Parsons maybe a progress stopper in some respects with Sam Williams and these guys changing things up?
I would say that's more DeMarcus Lawrence is the progress stopper for Sam Williams.
Potentially, yes. Yeah. But I mean, you certainly need a bit more veteran leadership because Damone Clark is untested. Really, and the period where LVE was off last season, you were seeing things as a rookie that Damone Clark was making mistakes on. Can he step up this week and the next 4 weeks while Van Der Esch is out? If he is coming back after 4 weeks, I mean, the whole fact that it's another neck injury is certainly concerning.
I mean, Gray, He's just talking there, Lorne, about Damone Clark. How do you think, though, this season has gone for him? I mean, he's going to be now the key or lead linebacker. For me, I think he's taken a step back from last year. That he's that downhill linebacker, very aggressive, loves to attack, but he just seems to be freelancing a bit too much rather than sticking to what his assignment's supposed to be, and he's getting caught out quite a lot. He's in the wrong position. He's getting stuck on blocks. He's not being where his defensive line are expecting him to be. But how do you think he's going to move forward this season? And do you think he will develop and progress?
Well, he's going to have to.
That is one way to put it.
Pure and simply, he's going to have to, because we are thin at linebacker. My goodness, are we thin? And we cut one of them not long ago. On the Micah Parsons discussion, Barcelona didn't play Lionel Messi in midfield because they had injuries to midfielders. You know, you play your best players where they're meant to be played.
Okay.
And for me, you can't take Micah Parsons away from the defensive line. He won't want to play linebacker, I don't think. I think he realizes himself that he's a defensive end. I'm quickly moving away from Micah Parsons as a linebacker. It's simply down to contract. I know
what you're saying in that way.
If we were to place the franchise tag right now, he's a defensive end, and they have no argument to call him a linebacker, in my opinion. I would just get more linebacker help in.
I think that's what they're going for. I don't think it finishes. I don't think it finishes with Rashawn either.
They just need to get more linebacker help in.
They were like there to begin with.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure who it is, but linebacker is one of those positions for me where they're not going to get you. Linebackers aren't going to get you killed. Like they're not safeties, they're not defensive linemen. They're just a bit of everything. And I think there's a lot of those kind of players that you could literally just bring in. The name escapes me. The LSU linebacker who drafted him.
Jabril Cox.
Yeah, I mean, I had high hopes for Jabril Cox. What's he do? Does anyone know what he's doing right now?
He's on the Commanders practice squad, so you could actually go and pinch him.
I would get him back in.
Yeah,
I would get him back in if he's not signed. Absolutely. I
mean, linebacker is I think still need, like you say, they lost Jabril Cox. They had Devin Harper get poached off the practice squad. You had questions of durability with both linebackers that we've got. Then you get Overshown lost for the season. Tim Warner asked the question, will he replace LVE next year? Yeah, it's pretty much a cert, that one. They might bring LVE back, but that's a risk assessment that the medical staff and the coaches will have to make.
They've played the LVE situation well, in my opinion, in terms of contract. Yeah. They just weren't sure, and they've been shown to be absolutely right, I'm afraid.
But I mean, he is one. Do we believe Mazi to be a bust? I don't believe so. No.
Too early.
You definitely can't do that with the position. You can't do that in the first year, especially in just the first quarter of the season. Last week was a bad week for Mazi, but it was a bad week for the entire defense. Just to put it blunt. Mazi was getting bullied. He was getting pushed around. He came in, I believe, off the top of my head, for 22 snaps. Which were all running, which the majority were running plays anyway. I think 2 weren't. And he was getting pushed around quite easily. Yeah. Generally, though, that hasn't been the case. He has anchored quite well. He's not really getting forklifted all that much. But last week was a bad week. But as I say, it's a bad week for the entire defense. So you can't really judge it off that.
Yeah,
I
he's
would
not.
argue that
You go,
I would
bro.
argue that Mazzy Smith isn't even fully developed physically.
Yeah.
This is true.
You know,
I-
at least get him up to size first before
Yeah.
you write him off.
Exactly.
I completely agree. And I mean, a lot of people see that Mazzy Smith was drafted in the first round, but realistically, anything after 15 in the first round is a second round
He'd
pick.
be good.
Yeah.
And from that point of view, you give him a little bit more grace. Nose tackle, one technique. We were obviously discussing as well this week that a lot of people are saying, well, how many tackles has he had? What's his tackle rate or whatever?
Bad one
For a one technique defensive tackle, which I used to play as well. Your assignment was not to make the tackle. Your assignment was to basically gobble up that double team of the offensive line and let LVE, Damone Clark, whoever else is playing linebacker, flow to the ball and make the tackle for loss or at least minimize the rushing game. And that has happened. And the fact that it's not like we parted company with Hankins and said, right, Mazzy Smith, you are starting. And Hankins, you could say, was probably the best defensive lineman last week because he got the two certainly the best pass defender because he had two block passes at the line.
Muzzy is still. You're right. Muzzy's still a development piece. Muzzy is something we'd like to see a step up next year, but he's not the answer yet. The answer's elsewhere in the defense. Part of me who was never really a Muzzy fan. There were some difference makers still available that could have made a difference this year. And if we go back to wanting to make a difference maker, then maybe we might have picked up an actual WR1 at the position we picked at. So I don't know. It's not all Muzzy's fault, but I think there were still some other things we could have done.
I always say it, the defensive and offensive linemen most definitely need the most time to develop. Not so much with Mazzy, it is weirdly, it's more technique than anything else. But most of the time, these guys, you've got to think they're college kids, 20, 21, 22 years of age, and they're going up against grown men. So if more than anything, when they come in, it's that time to develop in the gym. It's putting weight on, putting power back into them to be able to match what they're facing. That's usually the case. So you kind of expect that change over a sort of a 24-month period. So their rookie and their sophomore year, and that is so true, are usually the ones. Now, I was looking at the practice report.
Don't, Lebarsky. Please don't.
I was looking at the practice report for the Cowboys. And I'm not even going to bother because there is half the team on there. I'll post it on our social media so you guys get to see it. I mean, it is, lengthy is the easiest way to put it. But what is interesting is Nashon Wright is back in practice. So he could be a CJ Goodwin replacement for when he comes back in. Get on the special team, see what he can do there. So be interested to see on that part. The only other thing I was going to touch on was obviously other things to look at was the Sam Williams experience.
Before you move on, Mike, just to interrupt, that bye week's looking pretty good right now, is it not?
Yes,
I know. Yeah, so that's going to be quite a lot of fun. But the only other thing I was going to talk about was the Sam Williams experience, which I think is fine. Just you need to give that one time. You didn't just touch on that one. But does anyone feel concerned about Stephon Gilmore? That in 2 weeks in a row now, we've seen players where he's faced up or matched up against with his receivers go in motion and loses containment.
I mean, it's gonna happen.
Age.
Yeah. You don't trade away you don't trade away studs. Yeah. If you're trading away your studs, you've given up on your season and you're starting to rebuild effectively. Like the Colts at no point did the Colts say we cannot lose Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore is one of our guys. We have see if we keep Stephon Gilmore, our season tickets will go down. It didn't happen. The guy's 33. We knew what we were getting. We were getting an experienced player. We had a pretty young cornerback group before he came in. One or two guys hadn't made it. We've talked about Wright. We've talked about Bossman Fat. It hasn't happened for them. Gilmore was the opposite end of the scale with the experience. He is not the New England Patriot Stephon Gilmore, put it that way. But we certainly still need him. We cannot consider other options because we've spent money, we've spent capital in the draft, hasn't worked. We've lost Diggs. We need as much experience as we can, and that is Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah. And the only other go on.
Bland and Gilmore are second cornerbacks at best at the moment. Gilmore obviously on the slide. Bland maybe will develop into being a one if need be.
They're in separate periods of their career.
It's still early days in Bland's development. And you're also saying that Bland is a 5th round pick last year. It'll take time for him to get to the peak of what he is. But, obviously it's looking good for him. But certainly this defense is struggling at the moment to try and make up for the fact that it's lost Diggs. And again, if you listen to Mick Shots this week, Everson Walls said that, it's interesting that the Cowboys defensive backs were almost giving away the inside of the field, which allowed the 49ers. In Landry's scheme, it was always force them to the outside, use the sideline, and you've got an extra defender in that sideline. So playing it, letting them have the inside gives them the real estate to be able to play. And
that's Keenan Allen's wheelhouse this week.
Yeah. So that's something that we need to focus on this week, and perhaps Dan Quinn needs to change up the scheme for the guys that he's got. And again, it's something he needs to retool as he's moving along. So
it's definitely something they need to look at. And one of the bonuses this week is Mike Williams is being moved to injured reserve for the Chargers. So they're facing, because Mike Williams big threat alongside Keenan Allen, so that kind of helps with the Stephon Gilmore part of it all. Because I would definitely put Bland because of how Keenan Allen can play both the slot and out wide. I'll just put Bland on Keenan Allen, take my chances there, and do the rest anywhere else. The only other one I was going to quickly touch on was about Mike Bull's comment about trading for linebacker. I think the issue there is they don't have much draft capital for next season already, and do they want to trade for a rental linebacker for this year? I don't think so. I can't see it.
The guys were obviously talking on Tuesday, and I think Brian said that we've got 8 picks, but that's on the basis the compensatory picks haven't been allocated yet. There can be, the NFL fudges the compensatory pick formula as in how it feels like almost. So you can't guarantee what rounds you're going to get the picks on as well.
Exactly. So, yeah.
And at the moment, I think from fourth round down, we're missing our regular picks in a way.
Yeah.
So I think you maybe got a 7th round pick, but from 4, 5, and 6, we haven't got anything at the moment.
And you're not going to really want to use a day 2 pick on a rental linebacker.
Yep. If we're trading anything at the moment, I'd be trading player for player.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. And you may, if you're doing that, you may as well just stick with what you got, because at least those guys, you know what you're dealing with. But let's move on to this then, guys. Make sure you put in the comments as well what you think it is. Give me your final score predictions. I've given mine in already. So while you think of what the final score will be, I'll give you mine. But make sure, guys, put it in the comments what you think the final score is going to be. I've sent in my score predictions. I've sent them over. I've said it's going to be 28-20 to the Cowboys. So I think that there's going to be a sneaky couple of field goals coming in from Dicker the kicker for the Chargers. But go on then, hit me with it, guys. What do you think your final score is going to be?
So I'm going to say it's Cowboys 23, Chargers 18. So I think it's going to be a 1-score game, and it's can we regroup and rally and hopefully get this offense kickstart.
I think it's going to be a lot like the Dolphins game, a bit of a shootout. Going to be close until probably the fourth quarter, and then I say it breaks to the Cowboys 38-28.
Ooh, Mr. Grazies.
I'd love to know which team's going to turn up.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the team that battered the Giants in week 1? Or is it going to be the misfiring?
Interesting development, though. Just so you know, Greg, Austin Eckler was a full participant today in Chargers practice. So it looks like he will be playing.
Yeah. Superb.
That changes everything.
Can we just get Parsons to spy him for the whole game?
Yeah.
Not probably a bad way to go.
Yeah. you just wear his helmet the whole match. Do you know I said that as a joke, but that is not a bad idea.
That's why I said it.
Yeah. You know, they could if they split him out wide, I've got every confidence in Micah to match him, get him in the backfield if they want to motion him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've seen Micah covering the likes of Saquon Barkley and what have you. Coming out of the backfield. So, I mean,
that's why I said it's not a bad idea. You said it jokingly, and I was like, okay, you're onto something there. But I mean, like, honestly, I mean, like, because Justin Herbert is the type of player who will stand, and he's the type, he was the same in college, but he wants to stand and deliver. And sometimes that can be at the detriment to what he's trying to do, because while he's staring downfield for a long amount of time, the pressure will get to him. So it is, if you wanted to do Micah just controlling the primary threat, you can have the rest of the guys trying to put pressure on Herbert while he's taking too much time in the pocket.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've procrastinated long enough. I'm going to go 28-21 Cowboys.
Interesting. So we're not that far off then. Don't take everything seriously. It's okay. We know exactly who put that comment in, and it's a regular occurrence for him to put funny comments in, and we do enjoy it. That's how
he has followed it up by saying
with his original score.
34-20.
Right, here we go then. Fantasy Lounge. We're on to it. Let's see where the scores rank. And Craig is doing this for the first time as well. So Paul has gone down. Jimmy stayed as he is. Lorne has gone up. Brian is Brian. Graham's gone up a little bit. Graham currently is in the lead because he has the highest score with the most number of bonus points. So well done, Mr. Graham.
I only played it once, twice.
And now it's 3 times. Can you continue? Can you continue?
You keep coming back Thursdays, Graham. You'll do well.
That's what it's all about.
And I'm normally the moany grouch on the show that always brings everybody down.
But should we get into this? I tell you what, we've gone a bit over on the show, but it's okay. So we'll just blast through this, right? So Cowboys, all right, hit me with this. Make sure you play along at home as well, guys. It's very simple, over or under, and we'll go from here. I've got some information on some players as we go through as well, all right? So Dak Prescott, now last week he was in single digits in fantasy points. This week, though, 19.1 fantasy points happens to be the highest number he's predicted to have this season so far. And I'll give you right. So Graham, to help you out with this, right?
Well, I don't need any help with this one.
The Chargers. You'll be okay. You'll be okay. The Chargers at the moment rank last in passing yards allowed. They are allowing the most. A lot of it is because of the injuries they've got. They've got a lot of injuries on the defensive line and in the cornerback. All three of their starting safeties are questionable to start this week.
Even Derwin James?
Yes.
Ooh, right, okay.
He's missed the last 2 weeks and he hasn't been in practice. I will tell you if he's been in practice this week, though, while you have a think. Sandy Samuel is the only one who isn't injured.
Right, okay. I'm going to go lower.
All right. Downey arrow for Graham.
I'm going to say we bounce back. I'm going to say it's a push on that one.
All right.
I'm going to say higher.
I like it. Positive.
I think Dak has a lot of opportunities. We're not talking, taking the top off the defense, but a lot of opportunities to make a 10-yard play that breaks into a 20, 30-yard one.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Now, Tony Pollard, just so you know, he's been limited today with a shoulder injury. I don't think it's anything serious. Doesn't sound it. Limited snaps, so it just means he's missed a few. I'm not going to worry about it unless we hear more. 16.2 fantasy points, guys. Hit me with it.
Lower.
Yeah.
Lower.
Yeah,
It's going to take a little bit for Tony Pollard to get back in my good books.
Yeah, I'm going lower as well. As I say, I think you need Dowdle to come in and spell him a bit more than he has been, and that'll make him more effective. But you need to have the sort of thunder and lightning that you have. You need that change of pace back or whatever. So
yeah, absolutely agreed. Lower. Especially if the red zone issue means that they spread out those punch-ins with Dowdle or Lupiki or however it's pronounced.
Yeah, I mean they're running back, they're linebackers, Murray Jr. and Eric Hendricks, both really good. Good linebackers against the run. Obviously, the other guy who's from Minnesota, he's 31, 32 now, so getting towards the end, long in the tooth. He's moved there because he's from California and played UCLA, so that's the move. But they still really good, especially on the. That's where they're good at stopping on the inside because they got those two downhill linebackers. But you can beat them on the edge, and that's where Tony Pollard is really good at getting those yards. But what were you saying, Lon? Did you say over under? What was your prediction?
I said lower.
Lower, okay. Oh, wait. One moment. Higher. Right, you said lower there. I've messed up. I put everything in the wrong column. What did you say, Craig?
Lower as well.
Lower as well. There we go. All right, we're back on track. We're back on track here.
Right.
Yeah, there we go. All right, CD Lamb, 15.6 fantasy points, has scored a touchdown, but has yet to have more than... to have not a consecutive week with more than 4 receptions. There we go. I get it out. Blah, blah.
These are not good stats for people we want to be number ones, are they?
Nope. I'm praying to God that it's higher this week.
Yeah.
He's going to be up against Asante Samuel, right? Which is fair, but I think that CD has the ability to get over the top of Asante. That for definite. He's got the length to be able to beat him. So that's one thing. But go on and hit me with your scores, guys.
Higher.
I like it.
Lower.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was higher.
Oh, you were high. Sorry, I missed that. All right, then.
I am not loving the offense this week, am I?
It's all right.
That's 3 lowers.
It's because you feel that they're going to spread it around, Graham. There's a lot of love to go around.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Luke Schoonmaker's going to have a big game. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah, sure he is.
All right. Okay. Jake Ferguson then, guys. So actually, we didn't have a bad game last week, but this week, 7.8 fantasy points. Can he continue on his trend?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm going higher on that one. I think he has been about 3 or 4 catches and 30 yards or so. So that puts you there or thereabouts. And then again, he's probably been our best weapon to get us moving within the red zone as well. And those touchdowns will come as well. So I'm going higher.
As bad as it sounds, the Pendershot injury helps Ferguson, so I'm going to say higher. Yay!
Yeah, you got one.
He's going to score 35 fantasy points and get 300 yards.
Set all these records. Yeah, no, that was my point as well about Pendershot, and I think that the trust is growing there between Ferguson and Dak. Yeah,
and I'm just going through now. Joey Bosa did not participate. Another safety, Alohi Gilman, is a non-participant. Ooh, interesting. Khalil Mack, but don't worry, there's a vet day for him. So yeah, we're not that lucky. And an interesting one, Justin Herbert. He is going to be on the practice report because he broke his finger, but it's on his non-thrown hand. Just so you know as well, Gray, Derwin James, hamstring injury. He's reported in and has practiced today. So looking likely he could be playing. Yeah, it could be playing. So we'll see how that one goes. All right. What did you say on the tight end? Sorry, Craig.
Higher.
Ferguson. Higher. Beautiful. There we go. Defense, 6.5 fantasy points, guys. This is a team that hasn't given up a lot of sacks, which is quite interesting. But they're facing a team that's going to want to come out and rain the pressure down. Herbert does have a tendency to hold on too long.
I'm going to say it's been a painful week for them, and I'm going to go higher.
Mm-hmm.
That there will be some points to prove, hopefully.
Yeah, and I mean, as you say, Mike Williams is going to IR.
Yeah.
The next guy's a second-year receiver. I think Bland should be able to get up there again. So yeah, let's go higher on that one.
Nice. Craig?
Are the Chargers wide receiver not a bit of a basketball team though?
They do. What's ironic,
tall, aren't they?
Is it their backup guy who's replaced him, Palmer? I believe
Joshua
his name is.
Palmer.
Yeah, Joshua Palmer.
6'1", 210 pounds.
He's not a bad player.
Quentin Johnson's their third receiver, 6'4", 215.
Yeah.
He's struggling. But ironically, I said this about Quentin Johnson during the draft. I was just like, look, fantastic player, wild productions, but stats stay in school. And, he's a body catcher. He's a guy who doesn't separate. He's not going to make guys miss during his route stems. It's kind of like you think, like, in the NFL, how does that work? How does that look? So far, not too much.
Watch Simi Fehoko burn us for a touchdown, though.
I know. Yeah, Simi's in it. No, I think he's going to be on special teams. So watch him cause a fumble on special teams.
Yep.
Just so you know, though, we forgot to mention it. Cavante Turpin is also out for 6 weeks, so it'll be Deuce Bourne taking punt return duty. He did have one punt return last week for 10 yards.
But
what did you?
Turpin hasn't gone to IR. Turpin hasn't gone to IR yet, and he was working out on the cords today as well. So that's it. That is interesting. That he's still there. Could it potentially be that he does come back a little bit, even if he's only playing as a kick returner?
Well,
because that is interesting.
Because I'm a big fan of the little man, then I say that the defense we're not going to get as many turnovers as we wished, but big returns on the special teams. So yeah, I'd say higher.
Higher. Beautiful. All right, then let's go to the Chargers side and wrap this up. Justin Herbert, 19.6 fantasy points. As I say, he's playing at home, averaging 175 passing yards at SoFi Stadium. So that's interesting. But in all the other games, he's absolutely obliterating it, over 400 yards in passing. Bearing in mind, they've been on a bye week, so he's had time to prepare.
Lower.
I like it.
Lower.
I like it.
I think you go.
I'm going to push on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's thinking about the Chiefs next week rather than this game.
Yes. Okay.
He's thinking about the noise he's going to face at home.
All right. Austin Eckler then, guys. 17.9 fantasy points. This is a huge game.
Too early. No.
There is two sides of the coin on this one. I like where you're going. Two sides of the coin. One side is the Cowboys are ranked 22nd in run defense, but Austin Eckler this is going to be his first game back since week 1. They have had the bye week. So do you think perhaps that they'll want to take it easy on him because he's such an integral part of the offense? Like, you don't want to just throw him in.
Yeah, Kelly and Spiller will have their carries as well.
Yeah. I like
just to begin with, maybe just this week, but he will. I think Eckler will become the stud that everybody drafted him to be. But just hopefully not this week.
Yeah. No, it'll be Spiller's day from Texas.
You got to remember who the offensive coordinator is as well. Doesn't call a lot of runs in a way, or certainly he didn't when he was with us.
They'll get Eckler under center at one point as well, and do something cute.
Well, this week he'll probably come out with a wishbone and just triple option veer right, whatever, But
Spider 2Y banana. Okay. What did you say? Sorry, on Eckler, Lord.
Lower,
and I know you said lower. So that's good. All right, then. Keenan Allen, quite an interesting one. Getting up there in age, so the athleticism you can see starting to drip, but he's still super productive. Number 1 wide receiver for the Chargers, 17.5 fantasy points.
Ever so slightly lower for me.
I agree. Around there, but probably a little higher.
Oh, a little higher. Okay, you've gone higher. Mr. G.
The Mike Williams situation interests me on this one. I'm going to go higher.
Higher? Okay. Oh, you think more in terms of number of targets?
Target share.
Yeah. I'm with you. All right. Gerald Everett, 8.4 fantasy points. Who's their number 1 tight end? He's actually... this is what makes me laugh with all of this. So he's down as having more fantasy points than Jake Ferguson, yet he's been less productive than him this season.
Oh, don't I know it? Because I traded for him in the keeper league.
Oh.
Right, if you've got him on one of your leagues, Graham, I'm going lower then.
Negative points.
Do you want to know an interesting fact? And I wrote this up that at the moment with Mike Williams out, the top 3 receivers for the Chargers, which includes Everett, all have a fumble recorded against them.
So you're saying losing points as well for a fumble as well. So yep, yeah, definitely lower.
Yeah,
I'm going to go lower on Everett because Parnham is getting all the touchdowns.
Yeah. I don't think Everett scored a touchdown this year. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't think he has.
Just a minute. No, 13 catches, 107 yards, 8.2 average, 0 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yes. So a game for J-Ron Curse to bounce back from last week's kerfuffle. Chargers defense, 6.4 fantasy points. Not a lot of takeaways, but they do create a couple. I think they've got a couple of 2 maybe interceptions or 3.
Lower if Bosa's out.
Yeah. Bosa is out.
Yep.
Lower.
It looks like. Lower.
Yeah, I'll go lower on that one as well, I think.
Beautiful. There we are then, guys. That is your scores locked and loaded. I put them in my little full, slotted in there so my daughter doesn't pull on it and rip it all up like she does everything around my desk. But yeah, that is this week's show. So we will be around and we'll be on Twitter and all the rest of it while the show's going. It is the show while the game is on. But let's go off with this. Hit me with it, Mr. G.
So if you're going to go to a Cowboys game this year, make sure you book through Cowboys Experience. They have game tickets, stadium tours, meet and greets, and much, much more. And I'm also reliably informed that Paul has not met Micah Parsons yet. He, in fact, met Sam Williams, and I was reminded of that pretty quickly afterwards. But you do get the caliber of player that you hope to see at these kind of things. Barry makes sure there's always some top stars at the table. Make sure you get their autographs when you go and meet them. If you're going to go to a game, go the whole hog, don't scrimp on it, and make sure you book through Cowboys Experience. And make sure that you quote UK Cowboys because
you get free stuff.
Here we go. Here we are. Here's his moment. This is his moment because this is his second time in, so he knows the score. Craig, give us the rattle on the travel package.
Great. So, 6 weeks today. We will be in Dallas. We will be at the Thanksgiving game, and you can join us. So, travel package powered by the Cowboys Experience. All the benefits, as mentioned beforehand. You get your game ticket. You get to meet and greet with the former, current Dallas Cowboys players. There's a tailgating party, stadium tour afterwards, facilities beforehand. Much, much more. There's a special UK Cowboys elements, and there's still time to order your hoodie and t-shirt as I am currently modeling. So, please contact us on the Facebook group. Join us. It's going to be a great event. Can't wait.
Beautiful. That was a good read. Well done. You smashed it. Right. So we will be back on Tuesday where the gang will be reviewing the big win. Let's be positive here. They're going to review the win on Tuesday. What went right, what went wrong, mostly what went right.
Hopefully.
And we'll take it from there. But as always, have a great weekend. Stay safe, guys. And because I said the first word, these guys have the last. So take us out, guys.
Right. Have a good week, guys. Go Cowboys. Cowboys forever, Philly for never. And next week, I think we've got a fan rant show as well. So that's going to be fun.
Right. See you late on Monday night for a big Cowboys win and a coast into the bye week. How about them Cowboys?
Halloween's on the 31st. Let's keep it there. Nothing scary.